I'm Michael Schneider, founder and CEO of Service. I have my good friend here, Henrik Werdelin. Thank you for being here, Henrik.
Thank you.
And we're going to try, please hold today, bicycling through Beverly Hills.
Appropriate because Denmark is the biggest bicycle country in the world.
Is it really?
I don't know, I made the stat up, but it's very big.
That's amazing. I'm going to go retire there. I love cycling.
We do have bicycle lanes everywhere.
That's amazing.
That's very incredible.
I have been cycling around LA, which is not known for being that bike friendly.
No.
And somehow I'm still alive, and thankfully. And so what could go wrong? It's entrepreneurs on bicycles talking tech. And we're gonna go
people already chewed off.
Have a kind of,
on the stats, this is a dropout point.
Well, I was like thinking about Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, and you know, not that we have much in common with them, but I was just thinking analogies to what we're about to do.
Yeah.
But I haven't really seen this done before, so I don't know if there's a good analogy.
Good reasons for that.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
Go ahead and make a right down that driveway up there.
Can we do tricks on the bike?
Yeah, do a wheelie. That's gonna be like when we're done. I'm gonna ask you to do one of those.
What's a wheelie?
Kind of when you go up on one wheel and your front tire is erect. Let's slow down a little bit just so we don't finish the route without finishing the conversation. So, Henrik, thank you for doing this.
Of course.
I know this isn't the most common use of your time on a business trip.
I love it.
And I really appreciate it. We're gonna make a left at the stop sign up here. So, my first question is political. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
But I wanted to know what's selling better, the Dognold or the Hillary kitten, and if you have a preference as to which one you want to see sell better.
No, I'm pretty happy with both of them selling. I think right now the Dognold, as we call it, it doesn't squeak, it grunts like a winner. That's kind of the one that's selling the best, and I'm not sure if people are buying it so the dog can cuddle with it or tear it apart.
So the Dognold is outselling the Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, right now.
Hillary kitten, excuse me.
Yeah, this is a political parody, not a...
Do you feel like that's a precursor to the election perhaps, or is that like a Barkbox version of a poll?
You know what, I think I've stopped understanding American politics a while ago.
You and me both.
So,
I'm American, I don't understand what's going on.
So I don't know.
Okay, well moving on from politics.
You know, one of the things I think about politics, which I think is cool about dogs, it's one of the things that I think unites people. I think like if you're East Coast or West Coast or Republican or Democrat or gay or straight or whatever your convictions are, I think we can all agree that dogs are freaking awesome. And so actually one thing that I like about our business is that it's unite people.
I think it does unite people, and it's maybe one of the few uniting things left in American politics.
Where are we right now?
So we're in Beverly Hills.
It's very fancy.
Just cruising around what's called the Flats. And
any celebrities living here?
Well, Foursquare pinged me when we were just at that park that we started at, asking me if I was at Tom Cruise's house.
You should have said yes.
And giving me tips. So that was a bit weird, but I have no idea where Tom Cruise lives, for the record. The other interesting thing about these streets is they have different names like Alpine, Palm, stuff like that. And a corresponding tree is down each street. So Palm has palm trees, Maple has maple trees, etc. So, fun fact about Beverly Hills. So I want to talk to you about your background because you're not from America, you're from Denmark, and you studied political science and journalism. And I'm trying to understand somebody that studied political science and journalism, the connection to making dog toys and to having a high-tech system to clean offices and all the other stuff you're working on. Like, is there any connection to your degree, or did you just kind of fall into entrepreneurship and the degree is separate?
I heard somebody said the other day that kind of your calling in life is not something that you'll discover one day. It's something that gets whispered to you all the way through your life. And I think I always was starting stuff. I started on the internet back when it was FidoNet and Goof and Veronica, like in the very early days. And I started doing like CD-ROMs with interactive storytelling and started a radio channel. never really saw myself as a technologist, but I always used technology as part of the storytelling. And so at the time I wanted to be a CNN correspondent. That was my big dream.
Why CNN?
I just thought it was exciting to report on the news, and you would travel around the world and see excited places and meet interesting people.
Okay.
So I ended up at first BBC and then MTV as a producer, and while I was there, somebody asked me if I knew about, they figured out I knew about the internet, and they asked me to come up with a show around the internet, and I came up with a show that ended up kind of doing well. So it's actually a funny story. I broke into the studios because actually it's a kind of interesting entrepreneurial story. I'll tell that. We came up with this idea of wanting to show interactive components, so user-gen content on air.
What year is this?
This is 99, 98, and so it sounds pretty obvious now, but at the time it, we didn't have a website really, stuff like that. And so the problem by showing stuff on air is that stuff from the web doesn't look very good on air because it's very flat when you put it through what they call a scan converter, which basically shows a screen on air. And so I needed to come up with a way of having those, like the presenter and these user-gen content elements kind of appear in the same universe. And so we programmed this little thing where basically you could get a presenter and you would take the feed of the camera and make her look like a flash animation in real time. And I thought it was freaking awesome. And
Flash was all the rage at the time.
Flash did the shockwave.
Yeah.
So I pitched to my boss and he thought it was stupid. And then I got a little bit stubborn, so I bought the equipment and I broke into the studios at MTV and transmitted out like TV.
Well, hold on. When you say you broke into the studios, do you mean like movie style break-in?
No, I worked there and all the offices was wired for transmission at the time.
Okay.
And so we had a show at 2 in the morning called Alternative Nation, and I thought nobody's probably watching it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I bribed the transmission guy to go live from my office. And then the next day, everybody was emailing around and going, hey, what the hell happened to the show we saw yesterday? It wasn't on the schedule. And nobody really knew what it was.
So you hacked MTV to get your content.
Hacked MTV. And then the president at the time, this guy called Brent Hansen, this is a super cool dude, and my boss at the time, Eric, they were like, we love it, let's get it on air. And that kind of made me go from being a producer to be head of product development. And so I ran product development for all the channels outside the US for many years.
Wow, so that's super entrepreneurial. Even though you had a job, you were breaking the rules and succeeding.
I think, a lot of people say they're entrepreneurial, and I think a lot of people want to be innovative, but really if you don't kind of find ways of hacking the system so you can do it, then it's all just good ideas. And so in many ways, I feel it's the responsibility of somebody who sees himself as an entrepreneur to make stuff happen.
So let me ask you a question. You have a beautiful little boy named Anton. If he decides one day, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur, but first I want to get my MBA or something like that. Do you encourage him? Do you tell him that being an entrepreneur has nothing to do with a degree? What's your view on higher education and entrepreneurship?
I kind of really like being at college, right, and doing my undergrad and my master's degree. And so I think
Socially or academically?
Socially, it's not the same in Denmark as it is in the US. We don't live on campus, and so it's a little bit different. Okay. Academically, it's not necessarily I use any of the stuff that I learned, but I think what I got was I got to work with other people in groups, and I got to get exposed for a mass amount of information that I had to compute at a very rapid pace, and then I had to go and present it to somebody. And I think in many ways, that's components that I use today. And so I wanted to go to journalism school straight out of high school, and my dad was like, no, you want to go to college. And I think at the time I kind of didn't really agree with it, but I respect my dad a great deal. So
are you going to push your son to go to college?
I don't know. At the end of the day, it sounds very kind of romantic. I just want him to be happy. His path is not that. There's two things I want my son to do. I want him to take initiative. I don't want him just to be sitting there and expecting the world will kind of make things happen for him. And I want him to be a open-minded person that likes to connect with a lot of different diverse people. And so if I can teach him those two things, I don't really care what he does.
Fair enough. Going back to Denmark, how is the tech scene in Denmark? And I'm assuming you're in the US for a reason, but do you think you could be doing what you're doing in Denmark?
Not really. I think Denmark definitely has a tech scene that is growing up, and we've had a number of companies come from Denmark. Zendesk is probably well known over here. We use it at Bark.
Zendesk is from Denmark, or the CEO? It was founded here, right?
Founded actually in Denmark, and then it moved to Boston, and then it moved to San Francisco.
I had no idea.
So we haven't we have a number of companies that done well, and we have people who are entrepreneurial in their own rights, like Bjarke Engels, the architect, and things like that. And so I think we have the pedigree. I think the issue with Denmark compared to here is that there's 5 million people.
Yeah.
And so it's just such.
So you succeed big, it's just very limited.
If you like, literally, like in New York where I live, if I probably walk 4 blocks up and 4 blocks down, I walk around the same amount of people that that is in the whole country. And so, and the other thing, the US has this incredible positive attitude to doing stuff. It's almost like and it's not meant in a derogatory manner, it's like almost like a nice naivety of, hey, fuck it, let's just try it. And that kind of, hey, let's just go and do stuff attitude, I find is very unique to American culture. And so,
it's almost essential to entrepreneurship, right? Like if you knew what you were getting into, you probably would say no.
I think people overthink the ideas before they get started, and then when they get started and get going, they overthink what they're doing. So they should think less before they start, and they should think more after they start. And so what we do in the other firm that I run, Prehype, where we're an incubator, we have a very structured methodology where we can get going very quickly, but then we're also very ruthless. If we think doesn't work, we just close it down. And I think that mindset is something that's very unique to American culture. And then you have the market just enormous. You have a lot of investments opportunity, like a lot of investors here. You have a lot of talent. Yep. And it's just in general, it's just a freaking amazing country. You drive this beautiful roads in LA, or you walk in the hustle and bustle of New York, and it's very difficult not to get inspired.
Yep. That makes sense. And I think there's some X factor in the US that it's like what you're saying. It's a naivete, but in a good way, of the future that then encourages people to chase their dreams, no matter how absurd they may be. Yeah. That I feel like in Europe, there's more of like this is why it won't work.
Yeah, and let's think about it. And I remember when I started Barkbox with Matt and Carly, a lot of people were saying, how are you going to pack your boxes? And I said, well, I'm going to pack them myself. And people go like, that won't scale. And I'm like, I kind of understand that could be an issue, but right now we have 67 accounts, and I can pack them in 25 minutes, so it's fine. And so this idea that you sometimes don't have to solve all the problems in the meeting room before you get started, but you can kind of really just think of a big problem to solve and then figure out how do you wrap technology around it to create a valuable service for your customer. I think that is kind of like the root of getting things off the ground. And then a lot of the problems, they're solvable when you have momentum.
So it's been said that you can't sit on 2 toilets at a time. Jack Dorsey does it, and you could argue is somewhat successful at doing it. Steve Jobs did it with Apple and Pixar, and you're also doing it. I would add your name to that list. Is that hard? And would you recommend that somebody not even think about doing 2 things at once, or is there a way to balance it?
I think that's one thing I learned as I'm getting older, is that there's not one formula. I think people are just very different, and different things work for different people. I think for me, where I do think it makes sense to do a few things is that I find that a startup really works in its first few years or doesn't. And so I think in the very early days, this idea of having a few things, and so you can kind of see what kind of gets a little bit of traction, is a good thing if you're then disciplined about jumping into the stuff that then is working. I think for Bark and Prehype, I've been fortunate that my co-founder, that was kind of like the way it got started, and so they are very sympathetic and helpful with that. Yeah. And I think what we've managed to do is that we've taken our ability to build very quickly and our exposure to all these Fortune 500s where we run the incubation programs at Prehype, to take a lot of that learning and access and networks and apply that to the pet industry. And so in many ways, Prehype runs the incubation program for Dow Jones, and so we learn a lot about media that we apply to our media at Bark. We work with pharmaceutical companies, so
I'm sure there's a lot of crossover. It must be hard. There's only so many hours in the day, right? And today you spent an hour biking around with me, so you have even less.
It's only 30 hours in a day. I think that's true.
You're managing it. It's manageable, but it's hard.
I actually think in many ways it makes you a little bit more disciplined on what you spend your time on. Yeah. And so you become much better of saying, hey, this is something that I really need to spend my time on now, or this is something where it's good enough. But I don't think I couldn't do it if I didn't have people like Philip and Stacy at Prehype and Matt and Carly at Bark. And so in many ways, you need to kind of create an infrastructure around yourself that allow that to do that. And then I think we'll see. Like, it's still early days. And I definitely have sometimes where I have a little bit of the analogy that sometimes that I'm at a buffet with all my favorite food, and so I'm stuffed and a little bit nausea. I have a little bit of nausea, but it's all like for eating stuff I like. And so sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Well, that is a perfect segue into my next question, because speaking of a buffet, I'm gonna just read and hopefully not crash at the same time. BarkCam, Tinder for dogs. BarkBoard, dog emojis. BarkCare, on-demand vet service. BarkPost, a blog about dogs. BarkLive, which sells tickets to dog-related comedy shows. BarkFest Festival, BarkShop online store. That's a lot of bark.
Love bark.
So a few questions. Obviously, it's really fun to experiment with brand extensions. Like, how long do you guys give it before you're like, this is working, or we're just going to shut this down? And how many more do you think you'll launch?
So what we do is we apply the methodology that we actually have from Prehype. And so we have a very structured methodology to doing this. We have like 3 or 4 phases that we go through, and if they don't pass like a gate, then we close them down. Some of the things we don't need to close down because that they basically are just lingering there and they don't require a lot of resources, so we keep there. Our ambition is to become the Disney for dogs. We think that basically dogs are no longer pets, they're kind of extensions of the family. And so we're very inspired by what Disney and Mattel have done for kids and their families, and we want to do that for dogs and their families. And I think that requires that you have a little bit of like a full stack approach to what you do.
I mean, could that even scale up to like, you guys are making a movie with dogs? Like when you say Disney for dogs, okay.
We have TV shows in production. We have hundreds of millions of video views on our social. We do events where we have hotels where you can check into the box suite, and so you get like a bathrobe for your dog, and you get like treats in the minibar and stuff like that. And so I think we have something internally we call Bark Beta, and it's our internal innovation team. We spend about 1% of our turnover reinvesting it into new initiatives, and we hope to launch probably one bigger business a year, and probably 2 or 3 projects that we call alpha projects, which are basically things where we're testing a new technology, or we're testing a new business model, or we're testing a new way of having a great relationship with our audience.
Very cool. So I'm curious what you look for when you decide to start a company like Managed by Q, which is, by the way, I think is really cool, where you kind of have an iPad control center for your office and things just get cleaned and done. It's really nice. And then you have Barkbox, and then Prehype has involved many different industries. Like, what do you personally look for when you're investing in something, investing your time, starting a business? Like, is there any thread that connects all those, or it's just you find a good idea in whatever industry and you go for it? And let's take a look.
It sounds, again, a little bit like touchy-feely, but like, I really goes for people. And so I look for people who I think have the pedigree for being great founders and co-founders, and then I really go for people that are very cool to hang with. The reality is that I think statistically you're pretty doomed to fail in startups, and so you might as well have a good time while you're doing it. And so I've the last many years really gone for just incredible people to hang with, and then I go for spaces or industries that I think either I just find it fascinating, or where I think there's a macro trend that they're in growth. And so if nothing else, I'll learn something for it, and if it all goes wrong, at least I'm hanging out with nice people while I'm doing it. And so I think that's kind of been the 2 kind of things that I go for. I think it's tough, you know. I'm very fascinated by the book Thinking Fast and Slow, who basically make the claim that we post-rationalize everything afterwards, and I think we're much more emotional individuals than we care to accept, and so I'm leaning a little bit into that and kind of going a little bit emotional first.
Yeah, I suppose most things succeed because of the people, and no matter how good the idea is, it doesn't matter. So that makes
I think Andreessen said, you know, give me a big market, give me a good market and a great team. I'll take the great market.
Yep.
Or did you say the great team? I don't know. But like,
I'm pretty sure it's the team.
I'm pretty sure it's the team.
So when I first told you about the idea for Service, You told me a few things, but one of the things I remember is you said it sounds whiny, like people that are complaining all the time and whining about stuff.
Yeah, I did say that.
And so, you know, as we've evolved the business, I have to say, there are a percentage of people that just love to complain in the world, and they'll complain about everything, and like we try not to bother businesses with stuff that is just irrelevant or not fair to them. But I'm curious, I wanted to open up with a bigger question about customer service, given what I'm doing. How do you handle customer service at Bark? Do you do it in-house? Do you outsource it? And how important is customer service to the overall kind of process and day-to-day functioning of the company?
So customer service in Bark & Co. is, we call it Bark Happy, or we refer to it as the Happy Team. We do that because we see service as being utilitarian, and really we try to become a products entertainment company, and so people need to have a good experience every time they interface with.
An 800 number, can I call Bark easily and talk to a person?
Yeah, you can call them anytime, you can text them, you can call them about anything. If you text them and saying, hey, my dog keeps barking when the neighbor comes by, what should I do? We'll answer all that. And so the answer to your question is that the Happy Team is the core, is our soul of our company. We think it's by far the most important team we have of all our teams. We have an incredible team that sits in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And
why Columbus, Ohio?
Huh?
Why Columbus, Ohio?
It's filled with very nice people.
Okay.
Well, it's
not as expensive as Manhattan?
It's not expensive in Manhattan, but there's a lot of talent at Ohio State.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of like funky company for them to work in, and they are just incredibly smart, incredibly kind. They have like a lot of the people that work with us have this kind of service mentality and it's led by this guy called Hanan, who is just a genius and the nicest guy. Like the other day, before I was flying to P&G in Cincinnati, and my plane got canceled. And so the first call was to my own support team and say, hey, what should I do? And they go like, don't worry, we got you. And so they rebooked me to Columbus, Ohio. They had a car waiting for me. I walked in, the guy goes like, we know that you like a coffee misto.
Wow.
It was like incredible. And so
very thoughtful people.
It's incredible thoughtful. And so
is that scalable? Like if Bark becomes the next Disney, are you still going to have a call center in the US filled with really amazing people that I'm assuming are decently compensated?
It's wrong. I think the question is, can we become the next Disney if we don't have it? And I don't think we can. Like we sent out 25 million products last year, and so I know an obscene amount of data about what a dog likes. I can tell you what squeakers resonate with a 6-year-old Labrador in Hollywood. But what I also need is to resonate with their parents. And
yes.
And
dogs don't have such a good income.
They don't have good income, and they also have parents that care about them as their children. And so if something goes wrong or they have something, they call, and they expect to call somebody who isn't just somebody who's sitting like being a robot somewhere, somebody who understands like what emotional depth that they care about these things that we send to them. And so we get hundreds of letters back a week from basically people thanking us for our service. And this is not something that we created as a policy. This is just by finding people who are as dog obsessed as our audience are, and then who are just incredibly kind. And so we send out notes all the time. If you Google or YouTube, like just make a search on YouTube about us, you'll see like tons of people who just sends thank yous for us. And so I see Happy as being the way that we can interact with our audience so we understand what we should build for them, and a way for us to have a relationship and a conversation that is more meaningful than just trying to blast products in their faces.
Do you think the internet is biased towards cats? There's a lot of cat memes online. I don't see as many dog memes.
I'm trying to make dogs more famous than cats online. That's my stated mission.
That's a lofty goal, my friend. Out of everything you've told me, that's probably the loftiest. Let's make a...
Dogs a lot. But so when you talked about service, like first I don't understand why all companies won't think like that. I think.
You mean being as customer centric is what you just said?
A big part of our success is I think that we are listening to our audience and we give a shit about them. Like we really care. And
I think all companies want to think like that. I think when you're the size of like a Verizon with 100 million customers, or like that.
But I think where you can become technical is not necessary. I think that bots right now don't have the empathy to kind of really give the service level that people require. Yeah. But what I do think you can do is that you can create technology that gives our happy team superpowers.
So an internal bot to assist the team to be more efficient and smarter.
Make sure that when people email or call us, we know who they are. We don't have to ask stupid questions. We don't have to kind of ask them to do. Like my co-founder and I had a product. They keep having this mantra they call "Don't be stupid," right? Like and it's just stupid. Like if you already like logged in with your password and you ask for the password again, now you're just being disrespectful.
I love that. I mean, that is the reason I started Service, not to be whiny, but to respect the consumer's time, because there's so many times when I have been, let's make a left here, when I have been on the phone, explain something, been transferred, have to re-explain it after being on hold for another 15 minutes. Like, I just find the whole process really, really annoying and really disrespectful.
And the skepticism that people have, their attitude when you call and like you say, you know, oh, have you done this and this? You're like, no, like, you know, even like the automatic voice thing that starts like, have you checked online? And you're like, I would not call and wait for 18 minutes on this call if you could have fixed it on the website, right? You know, assume I'm
some respect for the consumer's intelligence.
Yeah, I'm a smart person, right? Like just assume that I've tried. And I realize there are some customers out there that don't have like the same technical abilities, but then take it as an opportunity of getting to know them a little bit. Like if somebody calls in and wanted, like we get like one of the favorites thing we get people who send pictures of their dogs and the products we have. We love it. Like we send it around, we celebrate it. When somebody has their birthday, we send out birthday cards, and it's not a scheme. It's because that if you institutionalize a culture of caring, I think it filters into all the touch points that you have with your customer. And I think that customers in these days, when they have so many touch points, they recognize that authenticity. And that's the reason why they take their hard-earned money and spend it.
Yeah. So, do you have a dog?
Yes.
How many?
One.
What kind?
She is a mixture between a Labrador, a Golden Retriever, and a Chow.
Wow. Do you call that a mutt, or is that disrespectful?
She's from the streets of Alabama. She's from Mobile. She was found there, and then at the time, my wife and I were foster parents, and so we would take dogs from shelters in the South that has where there's kill shelters, yeah. And then we will help them find new homes. And then my wife got pregnant, and we decided to keep our little princess Molly. So now we have 2 kids in the household, my son and my Labrador.
You had the dog before you had the kid?
Yes.
How did that balance out once the kid came? Does Molly still get attention?
Yeah, she got a lot of attention. Like, she's a very spoiled dog. Sometimes I have to remind her that she was on this, like, from the streets. Like, now she has a trainer that picks her up twice a week and drives her up to a national park, so she gets to run beautiful places. And she gets, like,
does she drink Fiji or Pellegrino at night?
No, she's from the water, but it's not a bad idea.
Do you have a favorite breed?
You know, I like Labradors a lot, but like we had 18 dogs that we were fostering before, like not at the same time, and dogs are just incredible animals, and so I don't think I have a favorite species. I guess I have a little bit of a bias too. I like bigger dogs.
Bigger dogs. Yeah. Okay. What is the future of Bark? How much have you guys raised?
We raised 70-ish million.
Okay. Are you profitable?
We are cash flow positive.
That's fantastic.
Well, I think it's a difficult question because that we are reinvesting so much in our different product lines, and so it's one of those things where we can be profitable.
Yeah. You're choosing to grow.
We raised capital because that we wanted to kind of grow the market.
Will you go public one day?
Yeah.
Soon?
Probably a few years out. I think when you get over $100 million in revenue and you have a profitable business or a path to profitability, then you're getting into kind of like the path where you could. And so I hope so.
What is the most surprising story that's come from a user of Bark? Like, has someone done something just so insane with one of your products, or have a story of how that your Tinder for dogs, their dog met the love of their life, or like any anecdotes?
I think one of the things that probably was most surprising for us was we started really this whole idea of celebrity dogs online, and have been a big advocate and platform for that. And so a lot of the dogs now that have millions of followers online.
A dog has millions of followers.
Yeah, like Mani and Tuna and a lot of the other stuff. A lot of them were...
How often do dog celebrities tweet?
All the time. A lot of them are big on Instagram, not on Twitter. And so I think when we were telling people about that, they were like, this is just crazy. But I think we are a group of people, like dog parents, that don't think it's too weird that when you come over and sit on the sofa, I kind of go like, that's Molly's spot.
Yeah.
Or could share an ice cream with them, or kind of like when somebody walks down with a stroller with a dog in it, you go like, is it too warm? And I think if you don't have dogs, it's very difficult to understand that mindset. And so you kind of have to be a dog person to kind of, I think, appreciate our universe. But when you're a dog person, then I think you go, why the hell have nobody else thought about me before?
Is there a meow box in the future?
You know, like, I'm allergic to cats.
So because of your personal allergy, there's no meow box? I mean, people like their cats. It's.
But back to the authenticity, right? I think, sorry, the pun, that customers sniff out authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why we've been growing so quickly is because that people can feel that we don't like dogs, we love dogs, and we don't do this because we want to build a tech startup and sell it. We wanted to build a company that serves people like ourselves, and that didn't exist. And so I think if you suddenly see it as a business instead of like a mission of making dogs and their people happy, then I think you'll start to lose that authenticity.
So it's specifically a Disney for dogs, not a Disney for pets.
Correct. I think people misunderstand the relationship and how it's fundamentally changing. Like, I think a dog has much more in common for people who love dogs as their children do, more so than a hamster or a reptile.
Sure.
And so this idea that just...
Dogs are also therapeutic, right? Like, if you're sick in the hospital, there's studies that if you're playing with a dog, it lowers your heart rate, and it
kind of shows you have less stress. Like, if you have a dog growing up, you have less allergies. Like, there's just nothing to suggest that the world wouldn't be a better place if there weren't more dogs. And so I think a lot of us, but maybe we're just post-rationalizing. There's definitely data to support all those things, but I think the reality is that a lot of us, we have these dogs and they're incredible creatures and they make us happy and they show us unconditional love, and in a world that's kind of conflicted, have a lot of conflict, I think having just this one other individual that you can cuddle with on the sofa and always likes you a lot is something that makes your life much better.
What do you think of as the state of tech today, like in terms of valuations, things going on in sort of the world at large and the US at large, the election, all this stuff? Like, do you think it's a healthy state? Do you think it's a little bit frothy? Do you think good ideas will always find a home, it doesn't matter?
I don't always understand it. Like, I think sometimes you see evaluations and you go like, how does that really work? I think I'm probably a little bit of an old school entrepreneur in the sense that...
So, I mean, you like profits? And you like...
I like profits. I like unit economics that works. I like not spending my money on stupid stuff. You know, I think I see raising capital as taking out a mortgage on my house, right? Like, it's about creating something that'll be around for a long time. And I think if you want to build something that is solid, you need to build it in a mindset of that. Now, other people have made a ton of money building something and flipped it and have kind of like, and they do that very well, these more mercenary kind of founders. Yep. And I don't think it's wrong. I think it's just a different business that I want to do. And it sometimes even come with a much different risk dynamic. I think if you build something solid, you know, and it doesn't become $1 billion business, making a $500 million business is also an achievement. And I think that's fine. I think if you really want to build the next Facebook or Snapchat, then I think that you are really just trying to hit a home run, and the statistical chance of you hitting that is much lower, but obviously the upside of you do is much higher. And so I probably play a little bit more the long game, and I think a lot of the companies I have are probably hopefully billions of dollars worth, not like tens or hundreds of billions of dollars worth. But what I really want to build is a place where I can look back after, like at the end of my career, and I can say I built something that is still around. I built a place for my staff where they had incredible times and enjoyed themselves, and I built products that customers really enjoyed. And
does having a company that's centered around dogs, which is, man's best friend, make it easy to have a great office environment and culture? Are people allowed to bring their dogs to work?
Yeah, of course. Like, we have a lot of office dogs. I think it gives it a very special vibe, and so it's the Bark office is incredible fun to hang in. Yeah. But like, Dan and Saman over at Managed by Q have created this incredible culture in their space, and that's also a really nice place to hang. And so I think it's just different.
By the way, a dog just growled at you. Are you personally offended?
No, I think he goes like, "Where's my Barkbox?"
Well, Henrik, this has been a lot of fun. Any parting words for budding or aspiring entrepreneurs you'd like to share?
No, I think just get going and kind of get something out there and see if it works. And make sure you have a good time while you're doing it. I think it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. You can kind of be disciplined and intellectual about stuff, but you can also make sure that you take time to go on a bike ride with a friend, even though you're on a business trip.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I'm glad we survived. I hope this weather is seducing you to move to LA, because, by the way, LA tech is exploding.
I hear.
And there's a lot of room for talented entrepreneurs. So if you ever feel like moving out west, we'd love to have you.
Thank you.
My very last question, any plans for a hostile takeover of Dog Vacay?
No, I think they're doing their thing, and they raised a lot of money, and I think they're like helping other dogs, and so I think the more companies we can get in this space that make dogs and their people happy, the better.
Yep. Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Did you like what you just saw? You want to see more? Go ahead and subscribe. We have new episodes every Tuesday. And if there's someone you want to see on the show, just add them as a comment down below. We'll take a look and we'll have them on if we can. Thanks again.